Now, without further delay, let's begin today's event, Language Matters, Reduce Turnover and Build Stronger Bilingual Teams. I'd like to introduce your host moderator for today, and that's Kirk Laughlin, Managing Director and Founder of Nearshore Americas. Kirk, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Karen. Really appreciate the introduction. Really glad to be here today. I don't think we've ever taken on this topic before in our Nearshore Americas webinar series. It's very timely. As we all know, there's a really intense demand for talent right now, and that is creating probably an opportunity for many, many companies to be more precise in how they hire. And if they're successful in doing that, they'll be able to decrease attrition and get better CSAT scores and really have people more committed for the long term. And that's a conversation that Paul Thatcher at Immersion is going to help walk us through. He's the VP of People at Immersion. And if you do have any questions or comments, we really do want to hear from you. Don't wait until the end. Take a moment. Just let us know what you're thinking. Paul is going to cover a lot of interesting points here, a lot of data points, a lot of things to think about for hiring managers, and so on. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to you, Paul.
Thanks so much, Kirk. This is an exciting topic, exciting to be with you. We love our partnership with Nearshore Americas. And above all, what I'm hoping is that some of the things that I share today might be helpful to those who are listening. You know, as you said, we're all waging a war for talent. There seems to be a shortage, more than at any time in my career, for great talent. And I'd love to share a few ideas of how to identify that talent and unlock opportunities for you and for your people. Immersion is this fantastic organization. We're dedicated. You know, our mission is to unlock life-changing opportunities for people by helping them improve their language ability. And we use artificial intelligence to do that. To date, we've helped over 6 million people through our assessments from 700 companies worldwide. We're a global organization, and we work with many of the top companies in the world. They rely on Immersion to help them identify top language talent. And it's fun to have some of our current customers on this call. We welcome you. So I want to jump right into this conversation of this question of, in your hiring practices, how do you identify the mix between soft skills and hard skills? There was a really interesting study that Cisco performed in 2020, and they surveyed hundreds of companies to try to identify what were the most critical soft and hard skills that companies were looking for. And what was interesting to us was how high on both of those lists topics related to language ability came through. So on the soft skills, communication ability was the #1 soft skill that companies were looking for. And on the hard skills, writing and foreign languages were critical. But if you look at some of the others around negotiation, marketing, emotional intelligence, all of those have ties to someone's ability to speak a language and communicate. So in your hiring practice, assuming that this is valid, that these soft skills and hard skills are critical, how are you testing for it? And how do you test for it in a consistent way? At the end of the day, what we're all trying to do is hire the best talent. And if you can hire the best talent, which means they have the proper soft skills and hard skills to do the work that you need them to do, that's going to lead to decreased turnover. And what we've found is if you can decrease your turnover, particularly your 90-day turnover, that has a huge impact on your CSAT scores. I remember talking with a customer service agent from a company that I won't identify, but I just got talking with her and I said, "How long have you been doing your job?" And she said, 7 years. She said the average tenure for a customer service agent in our company is 5.5 years. And their CSAT scores were through the roof. They're internationally known for their customer service and the way they treated their customers. And they believed that it was tied to turnover. So getting the right talent in the door significantly impacts CSAT scores. And if you can improve CSAT, your customers are going to be happy. You're going to retain them. You're going to grow your business and become known for the way you treat your customers.
Paul, let me just jump in on that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of companies out there that tend to think that just give us a intelligent young person who speaks pretty well, and we'll mold them, we'll develop them, they'll train them. Like, leave it to us. We'll take a raw talent and we'll develop. Is that a flawed way of thinking about it?
No, in fact, it's a big part of my philosophy. I like to look at who the person is and can that person be molded. But there are certain skills, especially if you're expecting someone to jump right in and make an impact, there are certain skills that are baseline. And what we've found is in customer-facing roles particularly, that language ability is a baseline skill. And if they don't have it, they're going to be playing catch-up. And if they can't catch up quickly enough, it's going to impact their satisfaction with the company, and it'll impact turnover. There are others as well. Kirk, we're looking for a senior software developer right now. And that person needs to come in and have the ability to hit the ground running. We don't have the time to train them up. So there are certainly baseline skills, but if you have the luxury to train someone up and put the skills into them that they need, it's a great way to go. So no, it's not flawed thinking at all.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. As we look specifically at the soft skills and hard skills around language ability, what we have found is that companies struggle to create a consistent human-led evaluation of language talent for many reasons. Often the evaluations of human raters as they're testing someone's language ability, it's done by multiple interviewers. And all of those interviewers have a different skill level with the language. There are biases that get introduced. Instead of isolating on the language ability, human interviewers can introduce bias. It's one of the biggest advantages of artificial intelligence is if you have a well-trained AI model, it can remove the human bias from the data that it produces. As we look at high volume hiring situations, and many of you are in companies where you need to hire at volume, the human rating process is a bottleneck. You can only have one interviewer interviewing a single person at a time. Whereas with a artificial intelligence solution like we have, you could send the assessment out to all 100 or 1,000 of your candidates and have it return the specific candidates who have the skill level that you're looking for. That doesn't mean that you're going to base your hiring decision just on that data point, but it will help you throughout the rest of your hiring decision because you can rely on that data. And it's just expensive. The cost of the time for those human raters adds up. And, just a few more data points. I'm not going to go into deep detail on this. Overall, we find that the cost for using a model of a product like ours is about 25% of the cost of human raters. And as we're all looking to save money, it's a great way to go. Kirk, were you going to add a comment? You looked like you were going to say something.
No, that's my daughter who came to clean my office. For those who have teenagers, what a shocking development.
Oh, my goodness. That's just great parenting. I'm impressed.
Well, it took 7 reminders, but now is not the moment for that.
Yeah. Kirk, also in our conversations with companies around the world, this is a topic that's top of mind for them, is how do we appropriately introduce technology and assessment and artificial intelligence into the hiring process that doesn't slow the process down, that doesn't limit the candidate pool too much, and how do we know if we can trust the artificial intelligence? And So that's a question we get a lot, and my counsel for that is look for platforms that have a huge data set. As I mentioned, we have over 6 million assessments that we've run on our data set. And so it's reliable, it's predictable. And you can set your thresholds to make sure that you don't limit your candidate pool too much.
What happens, Paul, when the senior executives say to the hiring managers, we want, they'll come up with some personality characteristic. We really need extroverts, or we really need people who aren't afraid to do outbound sales and don't tire from that process. There's hiring managers who will absorb that, and that will influence how they make those selections. And I don't want to have you jump ahead or get out of sequence, but can that sort of request be instilled into the AI bot in some way?
I've certainly used assessments that try to isolate on those skills, Kirk. Our assessment specifically doesn't do that, but my philosophy is I'm not interested in eliminating human raters and humans from the hiring process. There are certain things that AI can't predictably isolate yet. And so I view our assessment and any other pre-hiring assessment as just one more data point. But certainly I've used cognitive assessments, I've used personality assessments to try to isolate the specific skills and tendencies that we're looking for a certain role. And for some of those, we haven't found a good assessment. So we have to create a structured hiring process with structured questions, and we have to train our interviewers to know how to dig a little bit deeper until we isolate the specific skill or behavior that we're looking for. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Let's go on. I want to save plenty of time for Q&A and answer questions that people have, not just about Immersion, but about AI and building stronger bilingual teams in general. But what's the influence on CSAT by hiring those who are effective language speakers? Again, a really interesting study, and I guess just a little bit more background. CSAT is so important in all of our worlds. Whether you're testing it or not, that customer interaction between your customer-facing people and your customers and their customers, it's critical. And we're in an experience economy, and more customers are demanding fantastic experiences, and they tie their brand loyalty to the experiences that they have with your customer-facing people. And so this question of CSAT is so important. Salesforce in 2021 looked at what the top contributors were to CSAT. And again, you'll see some connections with language ability again. The ability to speak persuasively, to show empathy, positivity, clearly communicating what needs to be communicated, listening, and then the emotional intelligence to admit that you don't have an answer. So again, if CSAT is important in your world and you're trying to improve that and create better customer experiences, it's a great time to ask, have we looked at the language component of CSAT? How are we testing the language ability of our customer-facing people? And if that hasn't been a priority yet, perhaps 2022 is an opportunity to look into that more closely. I see a question there from Daniel Valencia. It's a good question. What would you say is the most crucial component to having the best AI program for language evaluations? Daniel, I would say, first of all, you need to look at what aspects of language you're trying to test for. If you have a role that's where the employee needs to be able to speak the language well, then you need to have an AI assessment that isolates on the ability to speak. There are a lot of language assessments out there that are just fill in the blank, or they're typing language assessments, and that will certainly, give you data around someone's ability to type, but it's not going to tell you how well they speak the language or how well they can speak persuasively or show empathy. And so first of all, you need to find the right test to give you the results based on the role that you're hiring for. And then I'll just repeat something that I said before. In order for the AI to be reliable, that machine learning has to have run through enough iterations that it's predictable and that you can rely on it. And you get into some legal risk if you're basing hiring decisions off of biased data. So those would be two things that I would look for right off the bat. And if I didn't answer that question and you have a follow-up, please feel free to let me know.
Yeah, Daniel, that's a very good question. And Paul, when you discuss, it has to a certain number of iterations for that machine learning to really fashion itself. What is that? Is that a magic number? Or does it depend on organizations? What's the story there?
You'd really have to ask that to our psychometricians. Like, I don't know I'm not a statistician, but so I can't give you a specific number. But you can look at the tenure for the company. Have they been around long enough? And you can look at the customer list. You can see which other customers are relying on that data, and that can give you some assurance. And then you can look at the total iterations run through the machine.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, good question. Again, there's a connection between CSAT and retention, and one of our really innovative customers shared an interesting data set with us where they looked at the 90-day retention for people who were hired at a specific language speaking level. So you'll see the B1 and the B1 through B2, the C1 on those columns. Those are different scores on the CFR model. And it's interesting to see how those hired with a C1 speaking level were about 15 percentage points higher in retention over 90 days than those hired at a B1. Now, there could be other factors influencing this, but it's something that I've personally noticed as I've done a lot of hiring in Guatemala and in Latin America, that if we could isolate and find people who spoke the language extremely well, not only did they retain better, not only did they have higher CSAT scores, but they added more value to our company and our customers over time. They were more qualified to move into management levels and to train other employees. And sadly, when I was doing much of my hiring there, we were just basing our hiring decisions off of human rated interviews. We didn't have anything that could give us a specific data point in our hiring. So again, just something to consider as you look at your attrition and your retention, especially 90-day retention, to consider the impact of language ability for your bilingual hires.
So we spoke about this earlier, Paul, the reliance on the CFR scale and trusting that, all right, I am confident I know that this is a B1 or below, therefore I can make this decision to place them in a certain role within my company. Tell us more about why you may end up putting a person in the wrong position.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that we identified early on with the CFR scale is within each of those score categories. For example, a B1, it's a fairly broad spectrum within the B1 scale. So if you hire someone at a B1, but they're at the lower end of that spectrum, you've just increased your risk in providing great service for your customers because they may not have the language ability needed to provide fantastic customer service. And also, the flip side is true. If you hire someone at the high end of the B1, they may be more qualified for a position that you could bill more for or gain additional revenue. And so what we developed is a 100-point scale that can help you dial into exactly the language ability that you need for each role. And as part of the onboarding process, we will help you calibrate what those thresholds are for each skill set that you need to hire for. And again, you can dial in those thresholds, and you're not going to base your entire hiring decision off of language ability, but it's going to make you more intelligent as a company, and it's going to give you better, more predictable and better data to hire the best talent. Did that hit your question, Kirk?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Let me just summarize. We're at about 25 minutes. I want to make sure we have time to respond to any questions that have entered your minds. But we've seen how Immersion has benefited businesses all across the world to unlock opportunities for people. And we have found that not only do they hire better people, but it also lightens the load on everyone within the hiring chain, from those who are sourcing for candidates to those who are interviewing to hiring managers. The better data that you can provide all along that process, it leads to better mental health and lowers the stress of your people, because you're making decisions based off of better information. If you're not currently using some type of AI in your hiring to give you better data, some of the results that you can expect is that you'll get faster information than you will through human interviewers. As a human does an interview, they have to input the data into another system, or they need to send an email or somehow communicate what they learned through that hiring process. And with our assessment, you can put that data through API directly into your applicant tracking system, so you have immediate results for each candidate. You're going to get better certification for those that you hire. Some of the top companies in the world, like Apple and Amazon, they actually demand third-party language screening for anyone who's doing customer support for their customers. And we fully expect that that's going to become more prevalent. That's going to move down the chain, and smaller companies they're going to start demanding consistent language ability for all those that are hired to support their customers. And so starting early and getting certified speakers can actually be a story that you hand off to your salespeople to differentiate from your competitors. We've talked about the cost savings component. We've talked about the ability to hire at volume, that you can get immediate results for hundreds or thousands of candidates instead of just one-on-one. And it's one more thing to remove bias from your hiring process and make sure you're hiring fairly, and just give you more confidence that, again, you can sell to and differentiate from your competitors. We love helping companies. We love partnering with companies. Many of our top customers and partners are from the nearshore region of the world. And if you're interested in this, or if you have additional questions around AI and technology, and I can be a sounding board and share some of the things that I've learned, I would be more than happy to spend some time with you. Please reach out. Here's our contact information. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn or answer your emails. Again, I'm interested in helping you succeed and be successful. So, Kirk, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah. All right, great. So I got a couple of questions myself, Paul, and I'm sure folks in the audience have more questions. We've got a couple coming in here. Now's your moment to get to know more about Immersion and driving AI solutions in your organization for hiring. So Paul, first of all, I noticed in your customer list, it's false to assume that you're only working in the BPO call center world. What other areas of our industry or beyond are you active in? Such as some of these software engineering companies and others?
Yeah, we touch on almost every industry, hospitality and tourism. We have a huge presence in education. Many of the top universities in the world use Immersion to certify language ability for incoming students to make sure that they place the students in the proper language course. Restaurant chains like Chick-fil-A, who have significant demands on their hiring for their restaurants. It goes across the board. Certainly our main area for customer concentration is in the BPO space, call center world. But anywhere where you're hiring bilingual speakers, there's an opportunity to introduce AI to test their language ability.
Got it. And what does the assessment process look like? What's the duration or the frequency? How much do you tweak it to suit your own environment?
Yeah, it's actually really fun. One of the things that attracted me to Immersion in the first place was I am a German speaker. I speak it as a second language. And as I was getting introduced to Immersion, they sent me one of the tests to take, and it was about a 10-minute assessment. What the software does is it will speak a sentence to you, and then you repeat the sentence back in the language. And it's an adaptive assessment, so based on how well you answer those questions, the test will get shorter or longer. And it was actually a really enjoyable test. If anyone here on the call is interested in just testing it out and getting a taste for how it works, reach out and I'll send you a free assessment that you can try out. But it's adaptive, so you can plan on 10 to 15 minutes for the assessment. It can be done on mobile or on any platform that your candidates are most comfortable with, and it's not customized. It's not significantly customizable. We try to make the experience consistent, but that adaptive component will shorten or lengthen the test for the test takers.
Interesting. And when we follow up with our attendees, we'll give you more information on making sure you can take that free assessment. To understand correctly, Paul, so after that 10 or 15 minute process, I will be given a rating on this 100-point scale you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, that's right. So you'll actually receive a certificate outlining how proficient you are in that language. And then, the company who's giving the assessment, they can get the data in multiple ways. They can log into our platform and see the scores for those who have taken the test. If they want to use our API, then the API can communicate the score of that assessment directly into the ATS or whatever platform that you're using, so that you can have immediate results and move the candidate forward. One of the things that we really try to support for our customers is 24-hour interview to offer. In the war for talent, the quicker you can evaluate the talent and get an offer to that candidate, the better. And with these immediate results, it flows perfectly and gives you data that you can rely on.
Okay, let's hit a couple of these questions, Paul. First one, when do AI assessments become too much or too little? That's a bit deceptive, but do you understand that question? If not, we can ask Sarah to restate it.
I hope I can. I'm just going to give my opinion on this, Sarah, is you have to test it. I've used many different assessments in my career, and as we used some of them, we found that they were super effective. Others we found weren't effective. What I try to do with my hiring managers is identify the most critical skills and abilities that role needs to hire for. And if there's an AI assessment that can give me better data on that specific skill, then I want to test it out and see how it works. A lot of our customers will do some type of A/B testing where they will use their human raters to evaluate some candidates, and then they'll use the Immersion test to A/B test and see which is more accurate. And so for certain roles, what we're finding is you can use AI for 90 to 95% of that hiring decision. And so it just depends on the role and how comfortable the company culture is with using AI.
Okay, excellent. Gina asks, what differentiates this test from other popular language assessment tools on the marketplace?
Yeah, great question. First thing is the number of assessments that have been issued. We're not familiar with another adaptive AI-enabled test that has over 6 million cycles through the machine. That's one. It's used by the top universities and language learning companies in the world to verify language assessment. We have some amazing third-party groups who have, as they've tried to test their language solutions, they've relied on the Immersion test for the assessment portion. And I would say third, again, it's used by many of the top companies in the world. And so you can rely on, their vetting and evaluation process as well in making your decision.
Does
there are other. I'll just say one more thing there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There are many assessments that have wonderful reputations, but they don't give you immediate results. So the person will take the language assessment, and then it will be shipped off to a group of human raters, and you may get results 24 or 48 hours later. And that's another key differentiator, is the AI gives you those immediate results.
Two things actually popped in my head. One, does that tool improve over time or change or shift over time? In other words, the Immersion tool that exists today is the same one we'll see in 3 or 4 years. And the other thing, I just had a chat with somebody on this the other day. What about those that speak extremely good or basically native but have a lilt or an accent? Does this tool have any way to measure that, or is that not really fitting into the zone?
Yeah. To your first question on, is the tool improving? Absolutely. That's the beauty of machine learning and artificial intelligence. As you get more tests into the machine, it learns and gets better. It's also improving because we're constantly adding languages to the platform. Currently, we support 9 languages. And we have a process where if your specific business needs additional languages added, we can add those in a very timely fashion. We can partner with you on getting additional languages added. And then we're constantly innovating. We're looking at some amazing technology of how to get free and open response answers, possibly even real-time answers as someone is speaking. So lots more to come in the Immersion platform. And then your second question was around, remind me.
Accents and people who are they're native speakers, but they have accents or there's a lilt or there's a different sound than some folks are used to.
Yeah. As someone scores higher and higher, usually accent is less of an issue. If someone's scoring a 10.0 on the Immersion scale, they're a fluent speaker. One of the nice things with the assessment is you get recordings of all of the answers. So if there's a concern about accent, you can go back and listen to those recordings and see how strong the accent is, and if you think it's going to be an issue, or you could just talk, personally with those candidates. So I should have our psychometrician talk more about how you isolate accent in a evaluation process, because it's really complicated. It's really difficult to do effectively. But
that sounds like a really complicated title. Must be a person with a PhD.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so next question. What do the results show regarding each of the communication abilities that comprise speaking and writing skills, and how are these findings basically presented to the recruitment teams that use them?
Mateo, that is a great question. It's actually something that we are working on right now, of giving a detailed breakdown of the subscores of language. What are the different language components that make up the overall score? And so stay posted. We're working on that to give the detailed subscores. Right now, you just get the overall score, and we can give you some general guidelines. If someone is a 9.5 on the Immersion scale, we can tell you what the proficiency is and how that compares to a CFR score. But in the near future, we'll have subscores that'll be even more detailed. So stay posted.
Okay, and anyone else with questions, please jump in. We've got a few minutes left. Another question here from Thomas. Besides just screening with Immersion, do you have any advice on building stronger bilingual teams, or any other tools or practices advice you could offer?
Yeah, that's a great quick question. Kirk, do you have any insights on that, in your work in this area?
Well, I think my perspective would be, as you said earlier, Paul, you're not looking to eliminate these hiring managers who bring a lot of experience to the table. And in my view, those people are crucial in designing the model that's going to be sustainable in terms of hiring bilingual people. So that's number one. Number two, it's not a revolutionary thought, but I do think I'm a big believer in this idea of working very closely with local organizations, educational organizations, and develop real relationships, not just we have something formal and we see each other every quarter. I think obviously in Latin America, it's much more meaningful to really devote yourself to those relationships. And I'm speaking from experience. I've seen that really make a difference in some of these locations. So those are two thoughts.
Yeah. One of the things, and my response to that question, one of the things that I've seen be a huge benefit to building bilingual teams is helping people to grow in their language ability. So it's one thing to assess the language. It's another thing to help them continue to grow in their language skills, because that's ultimately what will unlock future opportunities for people when it comes to language. And so look for ways to facilitate better language learning. Look for ways to put your people in situations that will stretch them and grow their language ability so that they can add more value in the future. I think that adds, if your people are growing, then they'll be happy. For me, that's the most important component in employee satisfaction, is giving your people opportunities to grow.
All right, great. And let's touch on sub-scores, kind of two questions we'll just build into one. In general, what are the sub-scores showing? And accents also go hand in hand with speed of communication and, most importantly, comprehension. Is this part of the sub-scores you spoke about earlier?
And I'm gonna punt on this because we haven't launched it yet, and we're still trying to figure out exactly how to do this and what to show. But if you have questions on it, we'd love to communicate with you. If there are specific data elements that you'd like to see in a sub-score, reach out to me and I can get you in touch with our product leaders and our language specialists. We'd love to hear your feedback on what you need specifically in your business. So I realize that's a bit of a punt, but I also can't commit to exactly what they're going to show because we haven't delivered it yet.
Sure. Okay.
But I think
how about this
in general, it would cover the most basic components of language.
Okay, great. And how about this one? How often do you input results into the AI to improve correlation to human grading?
I'm trying to understand what that question is actually asking. So if the question is asking, are we running a parallel testing process to show how our AI compares to human raters? If that's the question, we don't do that because our bias, our strong bias, is that an AI solution is much more effective than human grading. And so we're not trying to compare to a standard that we think is deficient, if that makes sense. What we try to do is just look at the data from the assessments that are coming in and making sure that we're grading that consistently. But we're not trying to tie our platform to a human grading standard.
Well, it looks like we
correlation coefficient.
Right. I won't even ask you that one. That one.
Yeah.
Are you ready for that one? Or we'll leave that to the experts.
No, like I could go dig up my old stats textbook from my college days, and then I could answer Denise that that's not a very fair question to ask a guy in HR. But it is a compliment that you thought I could answer it, so I appreciate that.
There you go. So what's the outlook for Immersion? Where do you go from here? Is it all about this AI engine, or is there opportunities to build more AI solutions from here?
You know, language is our bread and butter. That's what our company is built on, and so we are dedicated to partnering with companies to help them unlock language talent. We have a lot of ideas of where we could go from there. We're partnering with some exciting companies to make it easier to offer a full suite of pre-hiring assessments in addition to language. We have wonderful. So if that's something that you're looking for, is not just a language assessment, but all of the other pre-hiring assessments, we can easily partner with other groups to do that. But what we're really interested in, Kirk, and it's where I started, is we are interested in impacting people's lives by unlocking educational and professional opportunities for those who can prove their language ability. And so we need the companies of the world to help us do that, to help us impact people's lives. And so if we can partner with you and be helpful to you in hiring the best talent, we'd love to talk about how we can help you get better and impact people.
Well, I think you managed to provide a lot of insight today, Paul. I really appreciate that. And for our attendees today, just so you know, there also is this resource utilizing AI when hiring bilingual agents, a very, very interesting, in-depth ebook report we developed recently from our editorial team. I encourage you to take a look at that. We will follow up with an email with more information, including the opportunity for assessment, which Paul offered earlier. Any final thoughts, Paul, before we sign off?
No, this has been fun. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks for the great questions. Wish we could have had a one-on-one conversation with everyone, but again, feel free to reach out to me if I can be of help. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks to Immersion and to our audience. Always great to see you all joining us, and we'll be in touch soon. Have a great rest of your day.